Hello, everyone, and welcome to the next edition of the Sales Webinar Series here at the Center for Professional Selling at Ball State University. I'm your host, Deva Rangarajan, and today we have a very, very interesting guest who also happened to be in one of the classes I taught a long time ago, but she has moved on to much better, bigger, brighter things. It's my pleasure to have Laure Timperman from Belgium join us for this particular session. She is a senior sales leader and a director in the healthcare division of Alcatel-Lucent Enterprise. And let's hear from Laure about what is it that Alcatel-Lucent Enterprise does and what does it mean for the healthcare business before we delve into some of the challenges that she faces as a sales leader in this particular area. Laure, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me and the audience.
Thank you for having me.
Indeed.
So what are we doing at Healthcare in Alcatel-Lucent Enterprise? We focus on 3 domains. So basically we start with the comms part, of course, the communications, the DECT, the handsets and the telephony systems. We also have the network infrastructure. So we go from Wi-Fi access points to switches to routers to the management dashboard on how to manage easily a network. And the third part is our new innovative part, and it's the cloud business strategy. So basically we also have a UCaaS, which is Rainbow, how people can interact, but mainly, and that's our most innovative part, we put IoT and asset tracking devices, which is really important in hospitals, on top of that platform, which means we have a cloud strategy and we can help hospitals in connecting nurses with robots concerning the IoT, with doctors and patients. So basically everybody is connected to anything and they can talk all the time with each other, which ease people's life.
Absolutely. I see that one of your close friends is your cat, which I can actually see behind. So hi to No. I think it brings a nice flavor to this conversation as well, Laure. So that's interesting, right? So you have 3 kind of product lines, and you are responsible for all of Northern Europe, you said, right? So essentially you have a team of around 7 people that work with you. So let me begin by asking you this. So typically, I'm assuming that if you have 3 kind of product lines, what are the typical sales cycles that you have with these product lines?
Good question. So it depends on which solution you sell, because we are tending to move from products to solutions. So basically we are selling now a communication. We are not selling just a DECT set. We are selling the full solution, what will help you, hospital, in having a more efficient communication. So it depends on what the needs are. And sometimes it's just simple. We don't need to do a consultancy, then it's maybe 1 month and we sell it. But we go more and more into complex deals. So it's basically the UCaaS platform on top of the DECT handsets and on top of specific communication for nursing. We connect it also with alarm server notifications, and then it goes quickly to 6 to 9 months because we have to feel what the needs is of the customer. And so it really depends. And I really apologize for my cat, who normally is
not at all. Please, I think the fact is that, hey, that brings a nice touch to it. We're all human, and this is the new work from home that we have to do. It makes us as salespeople human. And I think that is something that in this day and age where we're stuck to doing calls, sitting behind a desk in computers, it brings a personal touch. It gives us a little bit of a flavor for who you are. So no, please, I think it's a wonderful addition to what would normally just be sales topic. So let me ask you, so you have 6 to 9 months, right? So now, where have you actually seen a change in terms of how demanding the customers have been? Is it in the pre-stage, that is even in the specification stage where they're trying to look for what they're looking for, or are the customers becoming more demanding during the whole negotiation stage, or later part in terms of pricing and stuff like that? So where do you think as a sales leader, you find a lot more challenging things happening right now?
That's a very good question. What I see in healthcare now, already before COVID, that a lot of hospitals were struggling with the rapid digitalization of everything. So you have the EPD in hospitals, but you also have a lot of new devices, IoT devices. How do you have to cover the security with that? People come and bring their own device. Doctors are not always the most easy profiles to work upon because they want to do it their way and not the IT way. So we really saw a struggle of IT and CIOs really knowing what is best for my hospital, because there are so many solutions we just don't know how to manage it. So we went mainly from a vendor technology role to a consulting technology role, and really supporting them and triggering what their pain is, and then become an expert to help them. So that's what I see. They were very demanding, but also afraid in the beginning. So they were really looking for expertise. So is that demanding, or is it us reaching out to help them and then become their expert? I think it's in the embryo phase that they're the most afraid / demanding.
But Laura, tell me about this, because one of the things that is a big issue, right? Especially when you're looking at 6-9 months, right? And it's 6-9 months probably because of the fact that they're also making sure that they don't make mistakes and stuff like that. In your experience, to what extent has conversation, and now I'm not restricting it to COVID, right? Because this is digital transformation. COVID maybe might have fast-tracked it in terms of how your company is doing it and stuff like that. Your customers are doing it. But help me understand that the complexity involved in the customer's organization to integrate changes to their processes because of your solutions, to what extent does that take a lot of your energy as a salesperson to take your customers through that process? Because they can understand the technology part of it, but it's the implementation part of it, which is what in my opinion, I would imagine that a lot of the CIOs and the IT folks are concerned about, because they are going to be held accountable if you implement something and it does not necessarily show the results that it wants, right? So help me understand that process.
Yes, good question. What I see is that it's a journey and you have to guide the customer through the full journey. But then who is the customer? In the past, it was the IT director. And now you see a lot of IT issues are now being requested by the business. So we made it our business model to go and talk as well to the nursing direction and to the direction of the doctors. So we can feel the pain in the business and then help the IT persons to achieve a goal that the business also wants. So instead of, it's a lot more effort of the sales for the top 50 accounts in their country. They have to talk not only to the IT managers, but of course also to business and the CEO even, because the CEO has different drivers than the nursing director and IT. At the end, I don't like to say it, but they are often a commodity for the business. So you have to know who you have to play. So it's a different play card. So
So which actually brings me to my question, because what you're talking about right now is what we hear in other domains as persona-driven messaging, persona-driven value creation. So essentially the CEO in a hospital might be different than a COO in a hospital, and then there's a medical director in a hospital. So each one of them have different hats that they put on. So now as a salesperson, let me ask you this, and this has got nothing to do with ageism or something. So what is the average experience of the salespeople in your team? Number of years in sales?
Number of years in sale, I would say 7. So I have a pretty young team, which is very good in this domain, because it goes so fast. You have to be on top of your feet. So
Indeed. That's despite with 7 years and it going fast. Tell me, how fast has things changed in your business? They change every day or every month almost, right? In fact, in the way some things are changing too. So tell me about the rate of speed at which things change because of technology and consequently the processes.
So our solutions, of course, they have to be updated every once in a while, which goes really quick. You have to be on top of your feet. I would say every 3 months in one of the 3 domains, there is a new release, of course, new solutions coming up. So we have to be on top of our feet. Every quarter we have learning weeks with a lot of new topics. So I would say every quarter. And the processes, of course, have to follow as well. And what we see the latest year, the latest 12 months, our company is evolving very quickly on process. We have to be on top of our feet, because you have to follow, of course, the market. So,
because I'm thinking that if that's happening to you, you have to go and convince your customers about why they have to update as well. So let me ask you this. So what role does marketing have to play in this? Because we talk about sales, but at the end of the day, as a salesperson, I'm thinking that in a day, if you open up, your calendar is going to be so full talking to the different clients and all that kind of stuff, that you might sometimes not necessarily have the time to develop the collateral or the necessary knowledge to have these meaningful conversations with our customers. So tell us a little bit more about how marketing works in tandem with sales in an organization like ALE.
Okay, there are different opinions on that, but I have a very firm opinion on that. And marketing is extremely important. They are very good support concerning the global sales. If you have an account team with really dedicated accounts, I think, and I'm really a firm believer, that the account managers should be in control of their account lists. If they have 100 accounts on their list, they should know every account by heart. And of course, marketing should help with a lot of things like lead generations of new logos, brand awareness, events. Of course, they're very important in that, and also retrieving additional information for those named accounts. But the account manager should be in control of those 100 accounts. That being said, there are a lot of other accounts that should be discovered, and that's a real crucial role of marketing. Also, reference cases, for example, we have at Untitled. I really think it's a very good thing. We have, of course, the social media, and we use it twofold. So account managers have to, from my opinion, have their own social media, LinkedIn, share some posts about their own experiences with their customers, share some articles concerning their country and their expertise. But then you have marketing, who makes really great use cases. They can really make, of course, a marketing branded story around it. And then they push it to our ALE Advocates application, which is an application with only reference cases and articles branded specifically by our marketing department, which is brilliant. And then everybody pushes it to the social media account, and then it's one message, and it's really very good. You can tailor-made it by your own flavor, but I prefer to put it like the message by marketing because it's a really good tool. So that's how marketing is supporting us, and I think it's a really good way.
But let's say, for example, I have to go into sales. So tell me that a typical sales process right now, do you use these kind of tablets and stuff like that to go show, demonstrate value, talk about calculators and stuff like that? Do you use tablets? And if that is the case, the content that is used, digital brochures, for example, right? Are these things that also marketing creates as collateral together based on input from sales, so that when we go out there and we show cases to our customers, I'm talking about pre-COVID, but now of course you can also share screens and do that. So tell me about that part. So do you see that kind of push of cutting edge content? Because if you say there are a lot of changes happening, let's not forget that you're in healthcare. So there's also legislation happening within, and then if you're talking about data protection, so essentially you have regulation coming from data protection, you have regulation from what you can do from a healthcare perspective. So there are so many things happening that it's going to be impossible for the salesperson to keep track of what is relevant to whom. So I call it marketing. It could be different functions within Alcatel, but the idea is that it has to find a way, in a way by which salespeople cannot always go through training program. They need to make sure that they sync up and get that kind of stuff. So tell me about how that works in an organization like yours, with the main idea of helping the salesperson be relevant to their customers.
Okay, so we bi-weekly have a call with our solution marketing experts, and they brief us directly. So it doesn't go to tools, it's really directly. It's organized by our team. So what do? Every 2 weeks, we have an update on the demos that become available. Demos we can do ourselves now on a virtual way towards customers. That's one part. Second part, of course, like every company is doing now, we are really doing a lot of webinars. Content personalized for specific hospitals. And then we only invite those hospitals, because then we won't have interaction, we won't have a round table. So that's really a very important role for marketing, and they're pushing it towards us, of course. And if we have feedback, sometimes we just simply say, this is too early, it's not well developed yet. This is not something we will go and show to customers, because we will, between brackets, embarrass ourselves. So it's really a good, it goes back and forth. And because we are verticalized in Alcatel-Lucent Enterprise, I think that's also very important. We only have 5 verticals. So meaningly, it's healthcare is one of them. We have transportation, education, government, and hospitality. And because we are verticalized, we really have the expertise and also the dedicated marketing people on that. Meaning they're really having the knowledge. They can push it to our account managers, and they're not booking them with general marketing. tough if we don't need it.
Absolutely. I love it. So for example, the buzzword right now is sales enablement platforms, right? You have like in Belgium is very well known for Showpad. There is
Yes.
Showpad that is used, but then if you go to the US, there is Seismic, there is Saleshood. So there are a lot of these. There is also Membrane. All of these are platforms, but the platforms are platforms, right? Because you need to have content in them. So I'm really curious to see whether you use something along those kind of things, tools that can be used by the sales organization to have these kind of personalized, meaningful conversations with the customers.
So yes, we are using a tool named Eloqua. I'm not sure if you know.
It's from Oracle. It's from Oracle, yeah, indeed.
Yes, and I'm a firm believer of that as well, because if we, for example, send teasers out to customers, we can see who opened it, how long we opened it. So we can see basic information, and then our inside sales can do a follow-up call. For example, if we see someone has opened an email, has spent like 5 minutes on it, but in the end didn't register for the webinar, we can do a follow-up call and see, is there a lead or not? So we are using things like that. So we're not with Showpad working yet, maybe it will be in the future, but that's how we are working. And I think if you follow up really closely, and that's a process, and I have to be honest, it's not always going right. We have to, of course, push it, the process to that it's followed up correctly. But if it's done correctly, you can really see an increase in registrants, participants of webinars, and it's really a good thing. But you need to follow up on the tools, and that's
absolutely. I love it. I love it because one of the things you say is that, and this is not now, this is maybe even before, one of the practices I've always said, I've talked about in the past about Alcatel-Lucent, was how you would have these kind of, at that time it was monthly calls, and where you would have marketing and then sales. If you had multiple salespeople in one country, they needed to have one representative attend every meeting so that they could go back and brief everybody else. So this is a practice that I've heard from Alcatel-Lucent, but it was a monthly meeting around 12, 13 years ago, but it looks like it's great. So for me, it's wonderful. But as a sales leader, let's say, for example, right now, to what extent do you think that not having a centralized repository where there's a lot of information that is common across all, because now when I have this presentation made by marketing, every individual is only going to take parts of that is relevant to them, right? So to what extent that not necessarily having that leads to a duplication of efforts in coming up with collateral when I go and talk to my customers. So as a leader, you don't have to have a Showpad, right? You can have, how do you try to make sure that you minimize time wastage on that? And you kind of standardize certain things, right? So the technical specifications, things, and persona driven. So the CEO of a hospital in Belgium might more or less look like the same, like a CEO of a hospital in Denmark, kind of stuff, right? True, there could be some things, but apart from that, why would we want to go ahead and then come up with a specific presentation here, a specific presentation there? We have standardized ones. So tell me how you as a leader try to bring that knowledge sharing across your teams.
Okay, so to be clear, we have, of course, general collaterals. Alcatel-Lucent Enterprise, for example, in the industry where we don't have a specific vertical, we of course have the general collaterals for our solution. For healthcare, we have specific ones. And how do we make sure that we don't lose time and be efficient? It's because we have one dedicated for healthcare, one dedicated marketing person. But of course, for some events, we need to work with a general marketing person and with a specialized. And then we just bring them together and make sure that we are very clear what we want. And then we give the action point to them, which is, if you're an account manager, time is money, and you want to be very efficient. And then you just count on marketing to support you. But we can only support you if they know what you want. So then I push it to them. What I also ask my account managers to do is to always have a personalized presentation. I think it's really crucial. They all have one healthcare presentation, a general one, of course, updated every quarter. But if you go back to your country, for the one alarm notification service is more important than, for example, the network portfolio. So they need to make it their own branded solution and personalize it, of course. But I don't want them to waste time because every quarter it has to be updated. So then they can just pick and choose what they want from our dashboard, of course, and from our platform. So it's It's making sure you don't lose too much time. And it's a tough question, and it's a thin line, because sometimes you lose, unfortunately. If it is a new release, it's a search for the new presentation. So
there are only tough questions, and the answers are going to be even more harder, because if you try and take a look at work by a company like Gartner, right? So essentially in the tech space, and they have numbers like 70 or 60 or 70% of collaterals created by marketing do not get used by salespeople. And then also there's also this idea that if you have sales managers who can go take a look at presentations made by salespeople to your customers, and you go like, oh my God, we still are using the old brand guidelines, things like that. So that's pretty much why I bring this question up, because there's a lot of, there's so much, I personally feel, and tell me your thoughts on that as well, is that I feel that salespeople today are under tremendous pressure, with the customers becoming more challenging, your competition breathing down your neck, so many changes happening in all the rules and regulations, that asking them to also do the thing that they can be easily helped with in terms of pushed content, rather than me going into my SharePoint. And that's another pet peeve of mine, is you go into SharePoint and sometimes it's so hard to find content.
Correct.
And so that's my question. So how do you try to help your sales team with all these kinds of issues that I'm talking about here?
Yeah. So I think that's the task of a team leader. So basically, I take all their concerns, and if they have a question concerning marketing, I will take it up for them. I think it's logic. I don't go myself to customers as often as I used to be, because I was part of the team. So I know what their concerns and their pain are. They just drop it with me, and then I will fix it for them. For example, if they need a specific presentation, they can ask directly, but then if I ask it for them, it's much more easily, because then I also spread it across the team. So if one of the 7 asks me a question, of course, on marketing, I'll fix the question, and then I push it to everyone else. Of course, that it's sufficient and it has to be done anyway. So I believe as a sales leader, also, like you said, the regulations in one country, GDPR is really, now with the Brexit, it's in the UK, it's really important to have correct certifications in healthcare. But it's also important for Germany. So then I consolidate all the concerns, take it to marketing and the solution department, and then we take it from there, and then we communicate back. So I think now in this tough times, I think you have to take away the pain from your account managers, make sure they stay motivated and solve their issues, and then make life easier for them. So yeah, it's tough times for them.
Absolutely, yeah. But again, you know what? That's one of the things I really, really appreciate, Laura, is that you as a sales leader say it's tough times for them, but it's tough times for you too, right? So tell me, as a sales leader, what are 3 or 4 things that are keeping you up at night now?
In this COVID times, you mean, or in general?
In general, and then we can talk about COVID too, right? Or what you can do, you could talk about it in general, and then you could say which of these are more relevant now during COVID as against again. But I want to get, because at some point I'm hoping that COVID is going to go away.
Yes.
But the problems for the sales manager are not going to go away. So I want to see from that, as a sales leader, what are some of the challenges that you face, and then we can touch upon COVID for sure.
Okay. So what I see is that it's difficult to keep the account managers motivated. How do I mean? Because the DNA of a typical account manager is going out, having lunches with customers, seeing face-to-face customers, really having a drink with them, having a laugh. And now currently, they're just blocked in between the 4 walls. So during the lockdown in March, I really had a daily call, a group call with everybody to keep them motivated. And I also did it early enough so they couldn't stay in PGs and log in just by audio. I all wanted them to have a video call, because then you create a team spirit. And I have to say, since COVID, we are really a team, because my team is spread around Europe, and it's never had a lot of contact besides every quarter face-to-face one team meeting. But now we saw and hear each other every day. And it was just to keep the team spirit alive. Everybody had a different exercise to do. And it was really fun, because you saw the team coming together. If they had questions, they just raise it all in our team bubble, because it's Remo, our platform, we have a team bubble. And they're all sharing fun stuff, but also very stuff, and also questions that they have and concerns about their country. They started sharing, and before that, everybody's working on their little islands, and we had weekly calls, but it wasn't that into depth, I would say, and now it's really a team. That's the first thing. The second thing is how will they reach targets in this difficult? It's also something that keeps me awake. But what I see, once they were motivated again, they would start doing a lot more calls, going outside of their comfort zone, because I really push them to put on the video in our internal calls. And I also said, look, it's much more fun to talk to a face than to talk to someone out in space. And they start also doing that with their customers. And what I see is that the results never really went down, which I forecasted tremendously different. So I believe that if you keep the sales motivated at the end, and they work as hard as I did before, but with less travel, meaning, they have more time to work. So those are two things that keep me awake, to how to keep them motivated and how they will reach targets. I think they also correlate.
Pre-COVID, what were your things? What are the things that were keeping you up at night? Pre-COVID.
How to get all the information into new hires, for example. I think that's
so employee onboarding.
Yes, because we have a lot of solutions / products. It's a lot of technical knowledge. We are also a global spread company, so some expertise is in Paris, others in Singapore. So if you join, you have a lot to technology to know, solutions to know, people to know internally, and then you have your customers. Of course, they should be first, but if you don't know the 3 first, you can't go out to your customers. So it's tough to get new hires onboarded quickly. I think that's a major concern, because we at Alcatel-Lucent Enterprise are really expanding rapidly, also in new hires. So it's something we should focus more on. So that's something that will keep me awake. And also the processes, how to make them more efficient, specifically sales, how to make their life as easy as possible. They have to do a lot of administration, which we want to push them to do it even more, but in an efficient way, and not logging something there and logging something there, but all in one proper tool. So the outcome is much more efficient and the input is much more efficient, of course.
Indeed. Actually, one last question I have, which is very interesting because I didn't realize it, but you said you have an inside sales. So you have an inside sales organization that follows up on some of the leads. Now, the inside sales, does it come under your supervision, or do you have a separate, more general inside sales force that does the qualification?
It's separate and it's part of marketing. But we work very closely with them. Of course, account manager has their own inside sales, which they work collab. It's not a personalized one, of course. They have to share it with 3 or 4 other account managers, but it works very good because the leads has to be handed over, of course, from a specific threshold. So they have to work very closely together. What we also do if we have specific call outs or specific events going on, we also flag it to the inside sales, so they can do specific campaigns around it. So it's really interesting that we have a very good relationship with them.
And as a sales leader, do you insist that all the leads coming in from your inside sales, because the traditional argument has been that marketing creates leads that salespeople cannot or do not want to follow up because they think it's useless, it's not qualified, right? So as a sales leader, to what extent do you make sure that the leads that have been qualified by your inside sales are followed up by your salespeople?
That's a good question, because the KPI normally is the amount of money. And only then an account manager needs to accept the lead. But what we saw in a lot of times is that the inside sales had to reach their KPI, so they put the amount very high. Then the account manager went qualifying the lead once again, and at the end it was like only peanuts of the total amount. I really asked my account managers to train and to not accept the leads if it was nothing. And that's how you train both teams, because now they're working very good together, because they will say, this is a lead from example 30K. Do you want it or do you want me to close it? Because inside sales can close also themselves. So it's really interesting to see that now they are trained on it and they will hand over if the account managers agrees. So it's something specific for my team. I'm not sure how the other teams work, but I was an inside sales myself in the beginning. So I know how important inside sales is as well. So.
Indeed. But that's interesting. So when you mean you're not familiar with it outside, so you talk about outside of your region or outside of your industry? You know what I mean? So essentially of your vertical.
Yes.
So that's, what do you mean by that?
So I have, in my team are the account manager of healthcare.
Yeah.
And we have inside sales working for the account managers healthcare, but also for the account managers government, for example.
Okay.
And so I'm not sure if the account managers government are treating the inside sales the same way, but I know that my account managers will not accept empty leads. So that's what, because I'm the sales leader of this team, but this is something, of course, in terms of efficiency, it should be company-wide. So this is an extra point for me. So definitely agree on that.
Absolutely, because I think it's going to be, I didn't realize that your inside, or maybe I didn't realize that your inside sales was shared across business sectors, verticals, because that is very, very interesting, because then it could be that the KPI setting for inside sales might not gel with the KPI setting for your business external sales, and that could have a big issue, right? Because I can imagine that if your salespeople are incentivized, external salespeople are incentivized in one particular way, and your inside salespeople are incentivized in a different way, what's going to happen is that, yeah, they might start working together with your team, but that might mean that, hey, they have to work completely differently with the others, and it raises the complexity of their life. So, and so essentially, but if they have, and then it becomes a dotted line issue, right? So essentially, if I say, I don't really care, I pass on these leads to all the folks. And yes, Laura out there is screaming with her team that the leads are so bad. But my boss doesn't really care, because according to my boss, I had to have these many leads. I had to qualify these many leads and pass it on. So I think that is very interesting from that perspective, where it might go beyond just the coordination activity. It could just be that the level of friendship that the inside salesperson has with the external salesperson that might come to see whether where it works in some verticals as against others. I'm really surprised that, again, it's very intrigued, not surprised, intrigued by how inside sales shared across verticals.
Yes, it's a very good remark.
Absolutely, because I think, because I can even, if on the other hand, if it goes under marketing, and if marketing is going to be marketing per vertical, then I would rather have one or two dedicated full-time.
Yes, but the problem is the language, because we have inside sales. For example, we have one in Belgium. He has to speak Dutch and French. And for the verticals in Belgium, of course, it's not possible to have 5 different ones. So that's our model. But how do we help the inside sales is that we make call out papers. So we really type out what they should say. So basically we inform them on the solution. So I fully agree with you. It should have been ideal to have dedicated inside sales, but we struggle now with the language.
Absolutely.
Right.
Well, that's very fascinating. So Laura, thank you so much for taking time. I know that you're a very busy person, but it's very, very interesting how you go about your daily process in a complex sales process, dealing with the team, virtual teams, dealing with COVID, dealing with marketing, dealing with inside sales. So again, thank you so much. And I'm sure that your team is lucky and privileged to have you as their leader. And I hope that I see more of you in LinkedIn and see all of your features there as well. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me. I wish you all the best and speak to you soon.